You want to see my lavender plant?
Yeah.
It's growing and it's just barely starting to smell.
Like,
Tiny little bit of purple on it.
hello, lavender plant.
Notes.
Nice.
Yes. And one of them is the title for today.
Oh, for today, that's good because I didn't think about it at all. Like, not even to
What?
be like, I should think about that.
That's weird because that's not usually how this goes.
Yeah, no, usually we're both perfectly prepared
Uh-huh.
in every way.
Well, let's see. That's good. Okay. Um, so I
Feeling
actually
quite
have several.
cozy.
I feel quite cozy.
Maybe I should get cozy.
You should get cozy. Get a blankie.
Okay. Anyway, tell me what it stands for
Yay!
today.
Okay. Well, I
Or
have
anything else that you
several
wanted to say
options.
before we get officially started.
Okay.
Ooh, several
Um,
options. Okay.
yes, yes, yes. So
It's
for
exciting.
the S, I thought it could be should we? Question mark.
Okay.
And the rest I have truly embrace the source material, the medium, or the meaning. I also thought maybe E could stand for effervescent, but that's just because I like that word.
Yeah,
I
it's a
couldn't
good
really
word.
think I couldn't think of a way to work it in.
Um, it's a good word. I don't know if it really fits, but
No.
I wish it fit because it would be sick.
Yeah,
Because
that was
it's a
pretty
good
much my thought as well.
descriptor of the movie.
Mhm.
Okay, so hang on. So it's should we? And then
Mhm.
what was the TEM?
Should we question mark truly embrace the source material, the medium, or the meaning?
So it's like three M's.
Oh, so you're thinking we could do all three of them?
Well, it just seems like that would be funnier.
Mhm.
See, because it kind of just seems like an overall question of like when we're watching like adaptations of other things, like, oh, should we embrace the source material or should we embrace it? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's an overall question. So if we keep all of them and then we can call it women in STEM, and actually, if we keep like the S on source material and the W on should we, and just make it actually be like
Women.
unpronounceable. Women in SwTESMMaM with three M's. You understand me.
Of course I do. That's good.
Yeah. So that's my thought about that.
I like this. This is why this is a collaborative thing.
I also think in part of my getting cozy, what if I make it look all like cute and nice? And by that I mean replace these many medicines with these books so I look intelligent rather than,
And smart.
yeah,
That
intelligent
could
and
be good.
smart rather than sickly and weird. Well, I take
Mhm.
these because I'm supposed to, and I didn't take them today actually.
Here's what I'm gonna think maybe would be good. I'm gonna read through the things that I wrote down,
Okay.
and then you can tell me which things that you also want to talk about. And that way, when we have overlap, then we can, those are because there's a lot of things here.
Okay.
And so here's I'll do that. I'm gonna read.
Do it.
Okay. The Hunger Games. I'm gonna do
Hmm.
adaptations first and then remakes.
Okay.
Hunger Games, Lord of the Rings, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Cyrano, Uncharted, the video game movie, Princess Bride, The Last Airbender, Pride and Prejudice 2005, and the new Barbie movie. Some of those only have a few things to say about them.
Like for example, the new
Some,
Barbie movie that hasn't come out yet.
yeah, the one that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
Yes, that one
Yeah.
that I know next to nothing about because the
Uh-huh.
trailers are really good and they don't tell me what the movie is about, and I like
Hmm.
that.
That's
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Um, And here's what I have to say about adaptations. I said faithful to the source material, parentheses, that's not always what you think. Close parentheses. Appropriate medium, immaculate vibes. Those are the 3 points that I have to say about that.
Okay.
Oh,
I
and
like it.
unique.
Oh, so four
Four.
things.
Yeah, I lied.
Okay. Well, as long as we both
Um,
can count.
yes,
Yeah,
at
we
least
should be
up to
good.
four.
Yeah, yeah.
And for remakes, I put the live action remakes all under one little
Mm,
group. They're
yes.
all in the one. And then in parentheses on that one, I have Hate and Hell on Earth. Um,
Mhm.
the live action Avatar: The Last Airbender show remake. Peter
Mhm.
Pan, The Mummy. You remember that one with what's his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Batman and Ghostbusters 2016.
Okay.
Those are a few examples that I thought of. And the points on this one were fresh and new. Can we? Question marks. Should we? Vibes. Three question marks. And a cheap
Okay.
cash grab. Huh, is
Mm.
what I wrote.
Did you spell that?
No, I just there's spit on the page from where I did that.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's dedication. Cool.
What? One of those really, yeah.
Yeah. Didn't do any preparation for this at all. Except I
I know.
thought when I think of an adaptation, I think of um like new versions of Shakespeare because you know how people have been doing Shakespeare for like literal hundreds of years
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
always the same script, but it's never the same show. That's what I think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea. All right.
Yeah, just add Shakespeare to the bottom of yours and then that'll be my contribution.
I mean, we could talk about the David Tennant, Catherine Tate version of Much Ado About Nothing for just like
Yeah,
this whole time.
it's true. We could and we might. But then there's
Hmm.
also like early 2000s high school movies that
Oh
are
my
like based
hell.
on Shakespeare. So
Yeah.
that's not
That
like a
have never
remake.
slapped so
Yeah,
hard. Yeah.
it's not a remake, it's an adaptation,
Right.
but it's still, I don't know, it's an interesting vibe. I didn't know like where even you would put doing the same show. Like, is Much Ado About Nothing a remake or an adaptation?
That's a really, I feel like
This is a
it fits
discussion
in the
topic.
sliver of the Venn diagram. That'll be a really fun one to dive into. Early
Yeah, I
2000s.
like that one a lot. So anyway, those are my thoughts. They're all about Shakespeare. One of them is a question, a discussion question, and that's my
Good.
contribution. And go ahead now with what you were saying before.
Oh, well, because I just called my dad for, his dad birthday,
Yeah,
and he, have you ever seen the movie Strange Brew?
no.
It has the Mackenzie brothers in it, Bob and Doug Mackenzie from like 80s Canadian fame. It's
Oh,
the
yes. My
stupidest,
truest
dumbest.
loves.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
actually shocked you haven't heard of this. Um, it's a very, very dumb, silly, low budget movie that I enjoy quite a lot. But he was like, "Yeah, that's a Hamlet adaptation." I was like, "Haha, yeah, it kind of feels like it." He's like, "No, straight up, that's a Hamlet. Like they based it on like that
Mhm.
was an intentional choice." And I liked the juxtaposition of like, "Oh, that's highbrow, like that's Shakespeare, but it's shot with a $20 camera about Bob and Doug Mackenzie and their quest for like free beer, you know?
Mm.
That's the whole plot of the movie." And I was like, I think Shakespeare
And they
of
play
all the
themselves.
adaptations, they do,
It's
yeah.
about Bob and Doug Mackenzie. They don't have character names.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's Bob and Doug Mackenzie as themselves
nice.
trying to find beer by working at Elsinore Brewery.
Huh,
Yeah,
that's
and they
nice.
they meet a couple of brainwashed hockey players. Like it's the dumbest movie in the world. But I think of all the adaptations that I've seen, I think Shakespeare would really appreciate that one, you know?
Finally, everyone takes me
Like someone
so
who
seriously.
understands.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's
Because at
fair.
first I said, Bob and Doug Mackenzie can do Hamlet, but Shakespeare could have never have done Strange Brew. And then I felt bad immediately after I said it. And I was like, I'm sorry, Bill. I know you
You're like,
could.
that's a lie.
Is that it?
All
Are we done?
right. Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for watching, everybody. By the way, we did not start. We didn't have the official thing.
No, we
Or we
haven't
say,
yet.
welcome to women in STEM.
This never happens.
We have so many problems. Except I only read books.
And I take care of plants. I'm a very good, responsible plant mom. We've
Yes, and that's
established.
all.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. Well, we can do the introduction now. I can do
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah. Let's do
Do you want
that.
to do it?
Sure.
Okay.
I feel like I always make you do it, so sure, I'll do it.
Oh yeah, that's
You
true.
take one for the team. Welcome, everyone, to Women in Should We Truly Embrace Source Material, Medium, and Meaning, otherwise known as SwTESMMaM. We're your hosts, and let's dive in. Today we're talking about adaptations and remakes, the similarities and differences between them, and good and bad examples of each, I guess.
Yes. Yes. Very true.
Mhm.
Um,
Like, amen.
I wanted to toss it over to Clark for the weather. But we haven't said anything yet.
Who's Clark?
And I'm having a weird day. I'm just gonna open with that, I think.
Oh, okay.
Um,
In a rare moment of vulnerability on this podcast, one of us is having a weird day.
it's a rarity, very unusual, but
Mhm.
yeah. So to start, we could probably like talk about the definition, like how we define both a remake and an adaptation, the differences between each, and maybe start with one, talk about some examples, and then we'll move into the other subject. So kind of
Yes.
how
I
it's
think we should
separated
start
in
with
my brain at the moment.
yes. I think we should start with adaptations because that was the first thing that was on your notes.
What a great idea. Okay. Well, adaptations. I'm gonna toss it back to you.
And what are they really? We've all heard the word adaptation, but what does that really mean? I
Yes,
love doing that. Every time I have a conversation with somebody like in real life, I sometimes imagine like pop culture references superimposed onto them as they're talking. So obviously my brain is totally normal and I don't engage too much in media.
Anyway,
Yes. So
adaptations.
adaptation
You can
definition
do them really well. Oh, yeah, you go
from
ahead.
from dictionary, where you go to Google and you type word definition, enter, and it says dictionary. So this is what it says. Noun, the action or process of adapting or being adapted. Wow, how specific and helpful. Then underneath it says a movie, television drama, or stage play that has been adapted from a written work, typically a novel. Or in biology, a change or process of change by which an organism or species becomes better suited to its environment. So that's nice.
Yeah, that takes a while though. We probably won't bring that up as much today. So if any of our listeners are biology majors, you could probably click off now.
Yeah, this is not the one you're looking for.
Different adaptation. I
I know
understand the
when it's
confusion.
I understand that when you see the title that says women in STEM adaptation, you might think that that's
Oh,
what we're talking about. But in fact, no. This has nothing at all to do with biology or science
no.
in pretty much any way. We use the terms really loosely.
One might argue it's a very, very loose kind of cultural appropriation. I'm very sorry to actual women in actual STEM.
For stealing your terms.
Yes, but it's ours
Yeah.
now. I can already tell this
Yes.
is going to be a great discussion today.
Oh yeah. So anyway,
Well,
so there's some
I
sort of
was.
written work that tells a story and then it's put onto a play or movie.
Mhm, that's
Go
true.
ahead.
Okay. Some things that I was thinking about. I know what's happened. I haven't taken my meds today. That's why I am
Yeah.
this way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, some things that I was thinking about previously, uh, that determine an adaptation's quality are, is it faithful to the source material? Which is, it might not always mean exactly what you think. It might not mean like a carbon copy of the original, just pasted into a different formula.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes it's more about conveying the meaning rather than just like a word for word, like stenciled drawing of the original.
Uh-huh.
Like you know what I'm saying? So there's that to
So the
consider.
example being like we were saying, the Much Ado About Nothing adaptation that is both of our beloved, where it's like they take the script of Shakespeare, maybe with some minor changes, but overall it's like the same thing.
Hmm.
And they put it in a modern setting versus like having a similar story that you rewrite with like modern language in a modern setting.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another aspect to consider is, have you chosen the appropriate medium, or are
Mm.
you following the appropriate?
Or are you visiting a fake psychic? An inappropriate
Have you
medium.
checked her credentials? um,
When she looks in her crystal ball, is she just like reading a paper that's behind you that you can't see?
mhm.
Hmm.
And how long have you known this medium? Is she someone that you've picked up off the side of the road
Hmm.
while her cohort is stealing your jewels and
Hmm.
flirting with your guards, a la Robin Hood? Who
Uh-huh.
knows? You got to
Or
think
have
these
you
things
known
through.
her for a long time, and so when she's predicting your future, it's just because she already knows you, and you know what I mean? Either
Yeah,
way, kind of not psychic.
yeah.
So for anybody who's in that conundrum, these are some
So
resources you can
I
use.
guess we're not actually talking strictly about adaptations today. We do sprinkle in some
We
helpful
never
life
talked
advice.
strictly about anything. We say, here's today's topic. Let's talk about something else
We're
every
gonna
week.
glance at that one. We
Yeah.
sprint fully in the opposite direction. Anyway, appropriate medium, but which can mean like, have you chosen the right medium to tell your story? And also, with the medium that you have chosen, are you embracing it completely? Part of
Hmm.
our acronym for today.
What?
And the third, that
No,
wasn't for
just keep going.
you. The third I have written immaculate vibes, and the fourth is unique. So
Oh,
those are the
yes.
main things that I think can either make or break an adaptation.
Hmm.
Yes. Do you have thoughts?
No, not really.
Okay.
This
Oh, really? No. Okay, so we're gonna be talking.
is awesome.
Um,
This is probably the worst episode we've ever done.
it's really bad.
Horrible. We
I
have
don't know
no,
what's happening.
it's like we don't know each other. This is our
No,
first conversation and we're trying to
it
like
feels really
pretend like we've known each
uncomfortable.
other. And so here we are on our official worst
Boo.
podcast episode of all time.
I'm so sorry to everyone who's listening, particularly
If
to
you
John, who's
still
been with us
are,
from the beginning.
yeah, yeah. John, thank you for your patience. Our only ride or die fan who will still listen even while we're talking about absolutely nothing. So
No.
yes,
All
can
right.
you tell me
Hang on.
your
Let's
points
just
about adaptation again? The fourth one is unique.
yeah. Unique, immaculate vibes, appropriate
Okay,
medium, and faithful to
okay,
source material.
okay. So like we could talk about, for example, any of your examples or that one early 2000s movie, 10 Things I Hate About You.
It's a good one.
Um,
Let's do that.
let's do that.
Yeah.
So you've all seen this movie. If you haven't, pause, go watch the movie, then come back, press play, and you'll be all caught up.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a
So
really good
here's the
movie.
thing. It's unique because it's not the original story. It's like an adaptation that's interesting and it remains one of the like best early 2000s Shakespeare adaptations that are out there, of which there are like an odd amount. But
There's a very high number, all things
this one's up
considered.
there. Um Also, I think it's true to the source material in that like the characterizations like make sense and are like you're still gonna take away as an audience member, take away the things that you were supposed to, whether from the original work or from the movie.
Yes.
Although it is, as I said, not like original script modern setting, but like modern adapted script in modern setting.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's something that I think, have you captured the meaning of the work? Have you captured the essence of the character, the essence of like the story that they're in? And I think that's something that a high school teen rom-com is uniquely suited to do with Shakespeare's works, because who feels so strongly about like a romance, who feels stronger about a romance or like a scandal or drama than like a high school teenager does?
True.
It really captures the
Their
like
brain is like
tension.
hardwired to be like super dramatic and like
Yeah.
high stakes for no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
I think that's something that Clueless also does very well. It's not Shakespeare, Jane Austen, but an adaptation of Emma, and it's, I've seen like reviews and articles saying that it is probably one of the best Jane Austen adaptations ever done,
Hmm.
just across the board, because they really like captured the essence of Emma as a character. You know, she's, you know, well-meaning, but she's still spoiled and a little bit snotty and superficial. It just, it really captured everything that the original book, it's just so displaced from our own time and culture that it's got to be really hard for us to like fully understand what Jane Austen was like trying to convey with certain things. But
Hmm.
Emma, with the like kind of the Valley Girl stereotype, who genuinely, cares deeply about things, like that's exactly what she would be today. That's a really
Yeah,
good translation into like modern language, modern culture.
yeah, exactly. So I feel like sometimes in terms to like to actually be true to the source material or to have the same meaning, um, it has to be like translated into a modern setting that more people understand. Like
Yeah.
it's just like a necessity that they made Clueless, right? But it worked really well because they really leaned into like the early 2000s Valley Girl of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good and important distinction to say, like, we're not trying to copy something, we're trying to translate it.
Hmm.
Because you can't, the translation is notoriously one of the most difficult tasks from one language
Yeah.
into another. Because you have to you can't just translate the words like word for word directly what they're saying, because then it just wouldn't make any sense at all.
But you have to yeah. um not only get like the meaning of each individual word in the sentence, but also how they work together. And a lot of times like
Yeah.
a specific sentence will have um like alliteration or assonance or some other like kind of elevating quality that when you're translating it, you then have to consider the way that it sounds as well as the way like the things that it means.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
very tricky. But when it's well done, you get Clueless.
You get Clueless.
So,
Or also Pride and Prejudice 2005, starring Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadden.
mhm,
I think
true.
now is as good a time as any, because we have talked about going more into depth about this movie in the past.
Yeah.
So
We keep
we
just
don't
kind
need
of skirting
to,
around it.
yeah, maybe we don't need to go into as much detail as we're planning, but I do want to bring up one specific scene from that movie. It's the proposal scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
I
first
mean,
one?
the first one. Yes, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah,
Where
the
they're both
disaster
just getting
one.
rained on like sad,
Yes,
wet
yes, 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 yes,
puppies.
yes. Yes, and they're so angry, and you think they're gonna light on fire.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then they
That
don't because thankfully it is raining.
it is raining, and that's why they don't. Yes,
Yes.
exactly. They're soaking wet. So I've told you this before, but I have gotten into an argument with a professor about this scene.
Mm.
Bryce, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but you are wrong. Basically, what he said was, this I'll give you the context here. This was in my literature class from several years ago. And on the first day of class, we all went around and gave our introductions, and we uh, were talking about our favorite movies, which, is I almost imploded,
Hmm.
like naturally. But the one that I gave in that class, I figured it was fitting, was Pride and Prejudice, 2005, starring Keira Knightley.
Hmm.
And that started a little bit of a discussion in the class about, like, oh, because someone asked me to specify, Pride and Prejudice, do you mean the Keira Knightley one, or do you mean the, like, BBC miniseries? And I said they're both
Hmm.
really good for different reasons, but I'm partial to the Keira Knightley one. That's the one I grew up with. It's 2 hours long. It's not
Hmm.
an 8 hour.
Easier to get through.
It's
Yeah.
easy to get through. Yeah, exactly. I can watch it in an afternoon. I don't have to plan it out. Um, and Bryce, my professor, he said that he preferred the miniseries in particular because the proposal scene in the Keira Knightley version really bugged him, because that's
Hmm.
not how it was done in the book, and it would not have been appropriate in Regency era London. And I said, okay, but have you considered that you're wrong about this? Because the movie is not being made in Regency era England,
Hmm.
and I would like you to consider the fact that it's better this way. Because it's it's about conveying, like, the heightened emotions, the righteous fury, the indignation, the,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and honestly, like,
unintentional
there is a lot of
attraction.
impropriety in the situation,
Yeah.
right? So, like, why not lean into that? And it's like, oh yeah, these people are like weirdly alone and in the rain and whatever. Like, it would never have happened. But that's like that's kind of what the characters are going through anyway. Like Darcy's like, it's super improper for me to propose to you because we're like in different like social class and I hate your mom and whatever. And she's like, how dare you? Only I can hate my mom. You know what I mean? So I feel
Yeah,
like it
yeah.
kind of fits that vibe better because it is like a little bit out of place. So we, as like a
Exactly.
modern audience,
Exactly,
understand this
exactly,
is weird.
exactly. That's exactly what I meant, is like,
Hmm.
I'm sorry.
See, there are pretty much two ways to go about living a normal life with brains that are not good. And one of them is to get a prescription for extended release in the morning and instant in the afternoon. And the other one is just to throw caution to the wind and drink so, so, so much caffeine and sugar constantly all the time.
All the time.
Both are fine. It kind of depends on what you want the like end result to be.
Do you want to be sick to your stomach and shaky and anxious? Drink 2 bang a day. And the
And
prime
that is
example.
medical advice from actual women in actual STEM. They're
You see, it's on
doctors.
the label.
We're
You can trust
scholars.
us.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back. I'm here.
Okay, here you are.
Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to say as well. Is like, it's,
Hmm.
if you think about what Jane Austen's audience, how they would have perceived that scene. Like, yes, it's improper. It's already a little bit weird. But for a modern day audience, we're not going to get that as fully if they're just standing in a scene like you get in the BBC adaptation, which, and I don't want this to come across as like hateful or like antagonistic. I think that that is a fantastic adaptation, one of the best. I just
Hmm.
happen to like the Keira Knightley version better for this reason, because it says, first of all, this is more cinematic. It matches the
Yeah,
medium that they chose. If they Joe Wright said we're doing a movie, okay, then we're doing a movie.
exactly, exactly.
He's
Like
gonna
the
propose
TV
in the pouring
series,
rain.
yeah, the
Oh,
TV
go ahead.
series is more like maybe more faithful to the book and kind of more natural and slow paced because it's a TV series
They
and
can
not
piece
a
it out.
movie.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Exactly. But in the movie, because it is, you have to pack it in a little bit more, and the audience, you have to kind of show them what emotion they were trying to portray in that scene in the novel. We're like, okay, so Lizzie's pissed, Darcy's confused and angry and hurt,
Yeah.
and then they're just gonna hate each other, and then we're gonna close it with an almost kiss in the rain, in the pouring rain, as they're
Hmm.
alone. Like
Yeah.
nothing is gonna make sense, and everything's gonna be chaotic, but you're gonna be screaming the whole time
Hmm.
because that's what,
Because it's a
like, I truly,
movie.
because it's a movie, it's cinematic. We're
Yeah.
supposed to have heightened emotion. It's not supposed to be realistic. It's just supposed to be like you're supposed to see
It's
it and you're
supposed to
supposed to go, hell yeah,
convincingly tell the story. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
movie's insane. Joe, you really went
Anyway,
off on that one.
everyone go watch that movie.
Okay, I'll
Hmm.
talk to you later.
Yeah. What if every time we were like, if you haven't seen it, pause it and go watch it, we just watched it?
It really occurred to me. I really wanted to go watch
Yeah.
the Vine that we
It
were
would
talking about earlier.
really it would really disrupt the flow of our conversation, which today is already like
We're barely strung together.
the word that
We're
I'm
being held
thinking of
together
is
by one.
tenuous, but I don't know if that's the right word. But yeah,
I was gonna say that we're being held together with one single piece of dental floss.
yeah, today.
So
So anyway, we're already in danger of that happening, so we cannot stop for any reason.
no, this is so upsetting to me too because I was so excited to talk about
You took
this.
so many notes, like you're
I took
so
so many
prepared,
notes. I was very prepared.
and
Why is this the worst I've
we
ever
don't know
done?
how to talk to each other.
No, no,
Yeah.
very. I would give. I'm rating my personal performance right now at about a 2.5.
Out of what?
Your notes.
Funny. My friend Mason in high
Okay.
school would always be like, on a scale from green gummy bear to red gummy bear, how are you feeling right now? And it's like completely arbitrary. He'd never put numerical values to any of the gummy bears. He would change the order of the gummy bears every time he did it. It was awesome. And
He
also, my friend
says.
Jonathan in high school would always say, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 7 being the highest, what do you think? Like, how are you feeling right now?
That's
Yeah.
good. That's
Anyway,
really good. I'm feeling
yeah.
green gummy bear, by the way,
Oh, okay.
because my immediate guns. I wanted to say white gummy bear, but that's the best gummy bear, and I'm not feeling best gummy bear right now.
Oh,
I'm green
I
gummy bear,
understand. Yeah.
but that's really good. I'm gonna take that.
Um,
Um, I'm
so
gonna.
we were talking about
I
being true to the source material. Is there anything
Yes,
else
we
you'd
were.
like to say about that?
Um, I would like to mention the Hunger Games here. I
Okay,
actually
yes.
two that I would like to
Fantastic.
mention, the Hunger Games and Chronicles of Narnia.
Okay.
I think that those two do it differently, but they also do it very well. So let's talk about the Hunger Games first. Um, like I think we mentioned it at the top, and I don't remember how much detail we went into with it, but being true to the source material doesn't always mean a carbon copy of the
Hmm.
source material. And what I really like about the first Hunger Games sequel or the first Hunger Games movie, um, is that it really doesn't exactly copy the book. People say that Catching Fire is the best Hunger Games adaptation, and
Hmm.
I disagree. I really like the first one because it's not it deviates from the book. A lot of the Hunger Games book is just it's Katniss's inner monologue, it's her thoughts, it's her
Hmm.
processing information here.
And it
And
works really well as a book, but it wouldn't really translate well on screen.
exactly, exactly. Because if we just are with Katniss in the Hunger Games, that's all we get. But in the movie, it breaks out of that. We get to see the game makers in the the station, and it's Seneca Crane, that's his name,
Mm.
actually putting the games together while they're doing it. And we see his interviews with President Snow, and then we see Haymitch, working to get Katniss sponsors. We see the sparks of unrest in the districts. It's really,
Hmm.
really powerful to communicate that what is actually happening in the story and what is happening in the broader strokes of the story that we don't get to see in the books until much later. But it does a really, really good job of translating what's going on in Katniss's head, her emotions, her relationship with Peeta and Haymitch, which is really fun.
Yeah.
Um, the relationship that the capital has with the districts, especially the further districts, um, all of the above. It's really, really well done. And I would argue it's a lot stronger because it chose not to make itself a carbon copy of the book. And that's where I think that Catching Fire becomes a little bit weaker, is because it just became I was watching the book happen. which was fine. It's
Right.
still a really good adaptation, but I was like, I read this already. I came to see the movie of it because I wanted to see what the movie would do differently. And that's where the Hunger Games excelled,
Really
where
shone
Catching
through.
Fire
Yeah.
maybe did not. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of agree with that. I haven't watched them like in recently enough to know, how each movie kind of tracks, but
Hmm.
I think I agree with that. And I know that like when they first came out, there was like that big thing of like, people have t-shirts that are like the book was better and they just wear it to like any movie adaptation in any
Yeah.
theater.
Yeah.
That was like the height of that mentality. I feel like was during that
Yeah.
era.
Yeah.
So I feel like I heard a lot of comments about how like, oh, they totally skipped this part or they like added this thing that was totally unnecessary, but it's like it's not really like they
No,
skipped
and
that part because it's like better to be read than to be watched, or it would have detracted from the story in some way, or like they add this scene because it like sums up these four other scenes in a more succinct
mhm.
way. Like it's like you have to understand your audience and what they're going to a movie. So like probably want to watch a movie.
Yes, exactly. It's like they're embracing the medium, you might say.
I might say that. Yeah. And I might say that they're being true to the source material by conveying the actual meaning of what's happening rather than doing like a shot for shot, page for page
Yes,
transliteration of the book instead of a translation of the book.
exactly. That's a really good way to put that. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's the rain scene, Bryce. That's
Hello,
oh.
Bryce. It's the rain proposal scene.
Like
Yeah.
he's that didn't make sense. We're gonna move on.
No, but I was gonna accept it.
Thanks. I
Say, I put
appreciate
my
that.
top sheet on my bed upside down like an empanada, baby. Let's talk about the Chronicles of Narnia.
Let's do. Um, so this is different from the Hunger Games in that it is
In fact, a different story. Not the same. Yeah.
different.
But how else is it
Um,
different besides being not the same story?
um, you know my train of thought? Do you know it?
I've heard of her. I don't think we've met.
I don't think we've met either because she just
Oh,
fled.
the Chronicles of Narnia is different from the Hunger Games. I'm assuming you mean in the way that it has been adapted from book to movie.
Probably something like that.
Okay, cool. For example, they
Oh,
didn't use
no,
the whole
no.
Narnia series, just some of the books. And now your
Oh,
turn.
yes. Um, I said that it's different from the Hunger Games, but what I meant, in fact, was similar.
Oh,
Uh,
I see.
yeah, I
So
don't
that's
know
where we
why.
got lost.
That's why I was confused. I didn't know where I was going because of how I said the wrong word. That
Right,
meant
you're
the
like they're
opposite of the
different
word that I
because they're
meant.
both like this.
Um,
Yeah. Okay, I get it.
they're they're similar because the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, specifically the first one, I think, is uh, it's not it's not
It's by the
shown.
way the first movie, but the second book. If that
Yes,
means
yes.
anything.
Which,
Yeah.
by the way, is another one I've had an argument about. One of the companions that I had on my mission um tried to tell me that the Witch and the Wardrobe was in fact the first book, and I said no, it's not. It's the second one. And she said no, it's the first one. It's the first movie they made. And I said oh, but it was the second book ever written. And we got into
Ever?
I of all yeah, it was the
I
Bible
had no
first
idea the Chronicles of Narnia were the first books literally ever written in human existence. That's
ever.
crazy.
Yeah.
You learn
No,
something
it's
new every
not a
day.
lot of people. Not a lot of people know that. That's
Yeah. And that's
this is really
another
kicking in.
fact from Whitney, a doctor, whom you can trust implicitly.
So true.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not really relevant. It is, in fact, the second of the series,
Yeah.
but it's the first movie
But
they
the
made,
first
which is
book,
good.
because yeah, the first book would like not be that fun to watch as a movie. I don't know
No,
if you've
because
read
quite
it.
frankly, it's not a fun book.
It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
It's
No,
kind of odd.
I think
Yeah.
I appreciate it more now than I did as a child, but as a kid, because we read the Chronicles of Narnia, that was like our bedtime story for
Hmm.
years. We just read through them, and when we'd finish, we'd start over and read them again. And I always dreaded going to the first one.
Starting
And
over.
looking back, I'm like, why didn't we just skip it? I don't think any of us enjoyed it. But
But you know
we
how
can't skip
sometimes
one.
you create rules for yourself that aren't real rules and then you have to follow them even though you hate them? I've never done that, but
I've
sometimes
never done
people
that
do that.
either. Anyway, C.S. Lewis has a very particular style of writing.
Hmm.
One that maybe might not he does a lot of he's really good at writing internal, like,
Yeah, he's
thoughts
very
and background.
philosophical.
He's and, for those who don't know this, because I think I was 18, 19 when I first learned that the Chronicles of Narnia are meant to be like a Christian, like, allegory. I didn't know that.
Hmm.
We read these books, I said, a lot growing up, and it took me a very well into my adult life before I realized C.S. Lewis, famed
Well,
Christian
hang
author.
on. There's another meaning here.
Whoa!
Whoa,
Aslan's
how did
supposed
you
to be
do
who?
that?
His writing style is it's just unique and it's really, really fun to read. But if you were to just put what he wrote onto a screen, it really wouldn't come across very well because a lot of it is just internal thinking. Like I'm specifically where Lucy is going into the wardrobe.
Uh-huh.
There's a large chunk that talks about how
Sorry.
she's able to think ahead and say, I don't want to get locked in here. I'm going to leave the door ajar just a little bit. But later, when
Hmm.
Edmund is going through, and they call back to that moment and have another long explanation about how he's not really thinking ahead and he's just kind of mean spirited, and so he
Hmm.
closed the door without really thinking. Um, you really catch the meaning there, and they did put that in the movie, but like you can't. That's not really exactly how.
You have to kind of figure it out by seeing it on screen because it's not laid out for you in words. And they're not going to say
Exactly, exactly.
like out loud, "Oh, I'm kind of afraid, so I'll leave the door open a little bit." Like
Exactly.
it would
And so
detract
first of all,
from
they're
the
showing that they trust their
narrative.
audience.
Hmm.
Exactly, exactly. They know, like, okay, for those who have read the book, this is gonna be a really like they're gonna know where this is coming from. But for those who haven't read the book and are just coming here to watch the movie, this is just like you'll get a little bit more from their characters here. But we don't need to stop and like bring the story to a screeching halt to explain that. But
Hmm.
then throughout the rest of the story, you see a lot of really important subtleties that C.S. Lewis wrote in his book that they don't draw major attention to, but they still found very important to, capture on film.
Yeah.
And a lot of that goes back to the translation versus transliteration of it. Like they have to do it a little bit differently if they want to actually capture the meaning that C.S. Lewis was going for in the book. And one that is particularly difficult to do is when they're talking about Aslan with the beavers. In
Mm.
the book, there's this line where, Lucy feels like she caught a breath of, a fresh air on a spring day, after school or something like that. Like they all three of them experience very um distinct emotions that reading it as a child, you think, I know exactly how that feels. And this is how they
Hmm.
feel hearing that name for the first time. And that's a lot harder to capture on film. They did they had the sweeping instrumentals and everything in the story, but that's something that is difficult to
Right.
capture.
Like
Yeah.
it's hard to say like you know what like when you smell something and it like reminds you of your childhood. It's not something that
Yeah.
you can like even describe to anybody else, let alone like convey on a screen where there's no smell.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there are a few things that are better in their chosen medium. Like that is something that's better suited to reading in a book. But
Hmm.
like meeting Santa Claus,
Hmm.
they see the sleigh coming, they hear the bells, and they're terrified. That the movie really captures the tension there, the fear, the stress, or when they're fighting the wolves on the waterfall, or all of these
Yeah.
things. The movie really it's a phenomenal film. They did a really good job about, we're gonna think about this book and we're gonna do this thoughtfully and very carefully to the point where it's still an entertaining movie on its own, still a
Hmm.
really, really good film, but it's also exactly what C.S. Lewis wrote it to be. It's a really good Christian allegory.
Hmm.
And that's amazing that they were able to do both of those things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like that, it's something that can be really like charming and thought provoking and exciting, whether or not you know already the original,
Yeah,
which is sometimes like
yeah.
hard to do because people want it to be like they try not to like carbon copy it so much that it's like kind of unrecognizable, or the other way around where they like demand that every scene be exactly the same as it was in the book, and then there's like no point in making it into the movie.
And hopefully, this gets better. Well,
Bye.
goodbye.
Goodbye.